Today we're talking to Philip Wolf, who is the president and CEO of PhoCusWright. And we're at the event here in Atlanta and wanted to ask Philip a few questions about the event and what he sees coming up in areas of technology going forward. So this event is very interesting from the standpoint of a lot of technology vendors on the floor, some of our competition, which is great to see, and wanted to get Philip's input.
The best place to start is everybody should understand that travel, tourism, and hospitality is the world's largest industry. In fact, it represents 8% of global employment, 9% of global capital invested, and 10% of global GDP, even in a downturn. I speak all over the world, from Ecuador to Iceland to New Zealand, and many countries, tourism is the #1 economic driver. For example, I was in New Zealand recently and delivered a keynote address at a major travel event. And the young new Prime Minister also has the tourism portfolio. So he's Prime Minister and Minister of Tourism. I asked him why. He said, travel and tourism is New Zealand's #1 export, over 10% of our GDP. To understand why technology is so important is to appreciate that in this world's largest industry, there is infrastructure, physical, tangible infrastructure all over the world, one destination at a time, wherever you look. So in transportation, air, car, hotel, ground, rail, bus, boat, taxi, limousine, private charter. You move into hospitality and lodging and concierge services and financial services. It never ends. But to attract customers, or what we call the search, shop, buy paradigm, is wholly digital. You don't need anything physical, tangible to attract and retain and upsell and cross-sell customers. It can be and is increasingly all digital. And so, technology, therefore, is the engine of the sales, distribution, and marketing side of the world's #1 industry.
So how do you see the technology moving forward? What are some of the interesting and innovative issues and challenges for this industry?
In terms of innovation and trends, every year we convene PhoCusWright analysts from around the world and have an internal scrum about hot topics and issues for the year. We've had a lot of big ones. From 2000, we said internet travel faces reality. Travel 2.0 confronts the establishment 5 years ago. Talked about braving the long tail. This year, it's chaos calls, navigating the new. So for starters, it's not the new norm or the new normal, and anyone glomming onto that cliche doesn't get it, because normal means there's statistical significance or repeat frequencies of something. In chaos, there isn't. So it's random, unpredictable, things moving in all different ways, but it's a serious economic digital chaos. And so we've developed 5 tenets that explain that chaos. And it starts with the fact that the golden era of the web is over. From 1995 to 2009, people went from launching websites, and then there's been this exciting, massive, continuous evolution and improvement of web strategies. But the one-size-fits-all of the web and optimizing to different browsers or versions of browsers used to be a big deal. Now that pales in comparison to the 5 tenets. #1, disparate devices and channels. Web strategy, mobile strategy, Facebook, YouTube, Flickr, and all these things, plus Ethernet connections in the back of the cable box, SIM cards appearing in automobiles in the nav system. And so the proliferation of devices and channels will redefine strategy and the underlying technology required to execute. Secondly, this fragmentation puts enormous strains on search, so anyone that thought they could check off the SEO box has to rethink it. I had a client the other day call me to kind of boast how good they were on Google at a collection of key phrases. And then I said, and are you using a lot of video? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, how come when I type these same key phrases into YouTube, your stuff isn't coming up at all. And he said, what do you mean? I said, you haven't optimized for YouTube. And additionally, a lot of this content, like in Facebook, Google can't see it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And publishers searching for new revenue streams are putting an increasing amount of content behind passwords and firewalls. So that whole thing. A third tenet is tapping new travelers. Millions of travelers are leaving their borders for the first time, especially in the Asia-Pacific region. And a lot of companies are ignoring that, thinking it's safe to ignore that. And with chaos, if your list of ignoring gets too big, the risk to your business is inordinate. And this notion, well, I got to get one thing right, or then I'll do the next thing right. It's so easy to say, it doesn't work right now in chaos. Fourth tenet revolves around visualization. We say, see me, hear me, touch me. But interfaces are evolving to becoming primarily visual. Mm-hmm. And so even if your basic website that you thought was great is overly dependent on words and maybe some pictures here and there, that needs a whole redefinition as well. Just pick up a toaster oven or an automobile or a new camera, and the instructions and the guides are so visual now with icons and sometimes audio. The last we call significant surprise. It stands to reason that in a digital economic marketplace like this, with chaos, the probability of a significant surprise increases exponentially. And this is a big trend. Significant surprises can come in the form of a new technology that becomes disruptive overnight.
And we're seeing some acquisitions out
Right.
there that are interesting.
The Google rumored acquisition of ITA software could be huge.
Right.
Where Google could have an open API to a real simple airline search app. Significant surprise also is a new entrant coming from allegedly nowhere and becoming dominant quickly. The likelihood of this happening increases.
Right.
And or an established player losing their market share could happen. So chaos calls. Keep your seatbelts fastened. I think we ain't seen nothing yet.